Subscribe now.
Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm Austin W. Hawkins. This is Austin Hawkins Life. I wanted to make a really happy, upbeat kind of video today, but sadly and unfortunately, Stan Lee, the man who created Marvel Comics, pretty much the forefather of every superhero, pretty much, if you're a younger child, you looked up to one of the people he created. This man is an icon, and he lived to be 95. Sadly, his wife passed away, I believe it was about 2 to 3 years ago. She was 92. And I'm so glad and happy that they are now together. If you read up about Stan Lee, you know how much he loved his wife. And yes, Stan Lee passed away today. The man was absolutely amazing. I remember the first time I ever heard his name, found out about him. It was The Simpsons. If you remember that episode, he was supposed to do a like a celebrity show up, kind of just a panel, stay at the comic book guy's store for a day, sign autographs, this and that. And he ends up being the biggest nerd ever. He won't leave comic book guy alone, to the point where comic book guy, the TV nerd, is just like, get out, Stan Lee. He won't leave me alone. And it was hilarious. That satire was so good. And then I remember watching the movie Mallrats, directed by Kevin Smith. It was the first movie of Jay and Silent Bob, for those who are familiar, Snoochie Boochies. And Stan Lee, it was 1988, I do believe that movie came out. And Stan Lee did his little cameo. He did a very inspirational speech. It was funny. The guy from My Name is Earl had really good comedic timing for one of his first roles. It was really good. I think that was a lot of people's kind of like first movie showing of Stan Lee, and you think, oh, that was just a one-off. You don't think he's gonna follow through with that. But look, oh my goodness! So pretty much, Stan Lee had a rule. No matter what he sold, no matter this, no matter that, with Marvel Comics, he needed a role or cameo in every single Marvel movie they would come out with. And at first, you didn't really notice it in the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, that multi-billion-dollar industry that Disney bought. And you don't need the MCU, and you don't need me to explain the MCU. I apologize. You know what it is. It is huge. It is massive in the cinema industry. And Stan Lee started making his cameos and all of them, to a point where you just loved him. You would go to watch some of these movies just waiting to see that man's face. And, oh, God, it was phenomenal. Stan Lee, if I could replicate 1/100th of his career, if I could just match, like, if I could equal up to his pinky toe, that is a win for me in life. And Stan Lee, rest in peace. You're an amazing man. You have done so much more than anybody could do. You're so much more than so many people. Your creativity is phenomenal, and we thank you for everything you've done for us. I am looking forward to watching the MCU from this point forward. I don't like reading, I don't like comic books, but because of Stan Lee, he got me into them. Thank you all so much for putting up with me. Comment down below if you watch this, your favorite Stan Lee moments. Like the video if you want. Don't forget to subscribe, this, that. Stan Lee, thank you. And everyone who watched this, thank you all so much for putting up with me.